You are told that pain is a problem, that suffering is a sign of failure, that the ache in your chest, the weight in your bones, the hollow silence between your thoughts, were obstacles to be cured, numbered or ignored. But what if every sharp edge of your agony was never meant to be dulled, but hard? What if your suffering is not a flaw in the system, but the system itself, unveiled? And what if the very thing you're trying to escape is the only door left to your liberation? Imagine a truth so brutal, that even God's would tremble to speak it aloud. A truth that does not glad you with false hope, but strips you bare, skin from soul, until that remains escribenea your smile. This is not optimism, it is not comfort, it is a confrontation with the marrow of existence itself. Schopenhauer did not rise to entertain the masses. He wrote to shatter the illusions that keep them asleep. And if you were made it this far, perhaps something you already suspects, that your pain is not random, that behind every outbreak, every restless night, every collapse, there is a pater, a will. They called it will to live, but it does not love you. It hungers through you, a blind, insatiable force that uses your desires as bait and your hopes as chains. You want love, it gives you longing. You want meaning, it gives you mirrors. And it stimulates it for joy. It slices you open, not to punish, but to remind. To remind you that life is not a gift. It is a debt, a vow. And yet, within this darkness lies a paradox so profound. Most never dare to see it. The moment you stop resisting pain is the moment it stops owning you. So why does truth feel like betrayal? Why does clarity taste like ash? Why do we run from the very insight that could set us free? Maybe it is because freedom, real freedom, is the comfort, it is fire. It burns on the false self, the borrowed dreams, the mazil vow to please a world that cannot love you back. And in those flames, something unseen stirs, something raw, something honest, a new kind of saying, not with the eyes, but with the wound itself. You have been trying to believe that happiness is the goal, that peace is a destination, that fulfillment is just one more step, one more success, one more illusion away. But what if Schopenhauer was right, and all of it was a lie? What if life is pain? And accepting that, you look the only truth worth knowing. The question is not whether you suffer. The question is whether you dare to listen to what your suffering is trying to tell you. Because hidden inside it might be the one thing you will be seeking all along. But you won't find it here. Not in these words. Not yet. You will have to go deeper. Much deeper. You wake up every morning believing that you've chosen your path, that your dreams, your fears, your loves and losses are your own. But what if they aren't? What if they are shadows cast by something deeper, older, a current moving beneath the surface of your consciousness, dragging your soul across landscapes you never agreed to cross? You call it desire. You call it purpose. But Schopenhauer saw for what it truly is, a blind, directionless will, not a gift, but a curse. A force that wants not because it knows what it wants, but because it cannot not want. And you are just the echo that suffers under the illusion that it sings. From the moment you first cried out as a newborn, you were not expressing life. You were resisting it. That scream was not joy. It was a rebellion of being ripped from nothingness into the chaos of becoming. And every desire since then, every craving, every dream, every hope, has been a continuation of that scream in disguise. You think you want happiness, but what you truly want is silence. Not silence of the mouth, but of the soul, a stillness untouched by longing, a peace unshaken by the constant hunger that claws at your being. But how can you find silence when you are made a noise? So you chase, you work, you love, you consume, you build futures in your mind like fragile altars to a God that never answers. You believe that if you just achieve this, just reach there, then the restlessness will stop. But it doesn't. It deepens, because you are not chasing joy. You are running from emptiness, an emptiness that waits patiently, watches silently, and reminds you, in moment of quiet despair, that everything you have ever loved will one day rot. Every laugh will fade. Every face will become dust. Every heartbeat you've ever clung to will betray you in the end. This is not cynicism. It is not despair. It is a raw, unfiltered anatomy of existence, and Schopenhauer dared to dissect it while others looked away. He looked into the pit, not to romanticize it, but to understand it. And in doing so, he uncovered something terrifyingly liberating. If all of life is suffering, then suffering is no longer your personal failure. It is the blueprint. And the only real illusion is the hope that it could ever be otherwise. In this brutal clarity lies your first taste of real freedom, not the freedom sold in slogans or stitched into flags, but a deeper kind, the kind that begins when you stop asking why me and start asking what now, when you stop clawing for meaning in a world that offers none and start creating meaning like a flame against the void. And yet, the void does not hate you. It does not punish you. It simply is. And your rebellion against it is the very thing that keeps you enslaved. But there is another way, a quieter rebellion, not one of denial, but of transcendence. Imagine the moment you no longer flinch at your own suffering, when pain becomes a signal, not a sentence, when loss becomes a purification, not a punishment, when longing no longer defines you, but dissolves into something greater. This is not resignation. It is power, the kind of power that does not need to shout, the kind that walks into the storm not to survive it, but to become it. And as you stand in that storm, naked of illusions, stripped of every borrowed belief, something ancient awakens. Not joy, not peace, but clarity. The kind of clarity that cuts like a blade and heals like fire. You were never meant to be happy. That was a lie. You were meant to see, to awaken, to feel every shiver of this terrible beauty we call life. And perhaps, if you stop resisting the pain, if you welcome like an old friend with a hard truth to tell, you might begin to remember what was hidden before language, before identity, before the mask. Not everything needs to be fixed. Not every wound seeks to be healed. Some are made to be felt, because in feeling them fully, without distraction, without apology, you may discover the only kind of freedom that matters, the kind that does not need escape, because it has nothing left to fear. And now, you stand at the edge of yourself, not broken but undone, like a mirror shattered not by accident, but by necessity. You have glimpsed what lies beneath the veil, the hunger that never sleeps, the silence beneath the noise, the wound that does not beg to close. And in that silence, something ancient stirs, not hope, not promise, but presence, raw, unfiltered, unafraid, the kind of presence that knows pain not as an enemy, but as a companion walking beside you through the storm you no longer need to escape. You were never the mask. You were the ache beneath it. You were never the light. You were the shadow it could never erase. But perhaps that's the beginning, not of healing, but of honesty. Because when you no longer flinch in the truth of your own suffering, when you stop praying for peace and start walking into war with open eyes, something shifts. The world doesn't change. You do. And suddenly, even the unbearable becomes sacred. So if the will is blind, let your awareness be its eyes. If life is suffering, let your courage turn it into art. If meaning does not exist, create it not in grand gestures, but in how you breathe through the pain, and how you stay when everything in you wants to run. Because maybe freedom was never about escape. Maybe it was always about the choice to stay awake inside the nightmare and still dare to dream. There will come a moment, in the quiet, in the chaos, in the seconds before sleep, when this voice will return to you, not as memory, but as recognition. And in that moment, you will know nothing was wasted, not the tears, not the fear, not even the silence, especially the silence. If this truth moves something in you, if it lit even the faintest spark in the dark, then don't let it vanish alone. Like, comment, share this with those who feel but cannot speak, and subscribe not to a channel, but to a path that begins where illusion ends.